Hello everyone, a very good morning to all of you. Welcome to BYJU'S exam prep. Welcome to the slot 3 and discussion of questions and answers, VARC slot 3. I hope all of you did well, all of you got the scores you expected, and we are now waiting for the final results. So today we're going to look at every question and discuss the answer options, also discuss the possible areas of errors that you people had, right? So starting with this paper that I have that I have taken, the first passage was on history, interpretation of Indian past, Oriental scholars, what Orientalism meant to Europeans and the West, German Romanticism, right? So the first question there was, it can be inferred from the passage that the author is not likely to support the view. So what are we saying? Which of the options does not align with the author's views, right? The Oriental view of Asia fired the imagination of some Western poets. He has written that entire Oriental view, the Westerners were were inspired by and they had this very different exotic view of Orientalism. So first one aligns with his view. Indian culture acknowledges the material aspects of the West. Yes, Indian culture has evolved over the centuries. The first 2-3 paragraphs, the author talks about that. India became a colony of the West, although it matched the technical knowledge of the West. Let me just get my pen right. Now that has not been written anywhere, right? At what point has he said that we matched the technical, sorry, let me just go back, knowledge of the West. We were lagging behind. Look at the last paragraph. The last paragraph, the author says that it was a consolation to the Indian intelligentsia for its perceived inability to, let me just get my pen right, otherwise. Oh, sorry, what did I do? What do I do to go back to full screen? Yeah, I'm not able to make the pen right. Okay, let's do without the pen. For some reason it's not working, let's do without it. All right, so here if you see in the end, it could not counter technical superiority of the West. Therefore, answer 4 is wrong, that India became a colony of the West, though it matched its technical knowledge. Nothing wrong with this answer. I hope you got it right. The second one. Which of the following styles of research is most similar to the Orientalist scholars' method of understanding Indian history and culture? Now, if you remember right, in the first paragraph of the passage, the author tells you what was wrong with the way the Oriental scholars studied Indian cultures. What did they do? They studied the languages and civilizations, European ideas. One, that Indian ideas, Indian interpretation of India's past was generally influenced by colonial concerns and interests, also by European ideas about history and civilization and the Orient. So that is number one. Whenever you're talking of India, there was the Western influence, there was the European ideas about Indian culture. Second, Oriental scholars studied the languages and text with Indian scholars, true, but they made little attempt to understand the worldview of those who were teaching them, right? Therefore, the readings, the scholarship of the Oriental scholars was very different from the traditional way of looking at India's past, and maybe implied also that it was inaccurate. Therefore, the question is asking us, which one is most similar? So look at those aspects. One, you're studying a culture without trying to understand the people who are teaching it, right? So analyzing Hollywood action movies that depict violence and sex to understand contemporary America. You are looking at Hollywood movies and trying to understand American culture. You're not talking to the people of America to understand their culture. You're not talking to contemporary Americans. Similar to that should be my answer. Let's just quickly look at B, C, and D. Studying artifacts excavated at a palace to understand the lifestyle of those who live there. Well, they lived there. So you're looking at their abode and you're trying to find out about it. So you're going as close as possible to first-hand information. Reading 18th century accounts by travelers to see how they viewed Indian life and culture of the time. So you're reading their accounts of Indian view and culture. Can't get better than that. Reading about the life of early American settlers and later waves of migration to understand the evolution of American culture. So you're going through each step. B, C, and D do not talk about not understanding the culture from the people who are teaching it. Therefore, the correct answer is A. All right. In the context of the passage, all of the following statements are true except which one of these statements is false, right? Indian text influenced Orientalist scholars. Yes, why would they study otherwise? They studied Indian text with the help of some Indian scholars. So A is correct. Indian spiritualism served as a salve. A salve is a balm for European colonizers. No, he has not mentioned how he did talk about Europeans being inspired by Indian culture, right? Somewhere, romanticism of the Orient. But he did not say it was a salve for European colonizers. There were colonial concerns in the study, true. So that would be my answer, B. All right. Orientalist scholarships influenced Indians, yes. Orientalist understanding of Indian history was linked to colonial concerns. All of these are true except B. Okay. Now I got this answer wrong in the exam. To me, C, I thought that Indian scholarship, Orientalist scholars were inspired by Indian culture. This is put the other way around. But if you really look at the later part of description, he does hint at Oriental scholarship influencing Indians. So that question was, I made a mistake there. All right, question 4. It can be inferred from the passage that to gain a more accurate view of a nation's history and cultures, scholars should do all of the following except more accurate view. What has the author said? Talk to the people. What is the mistake the Oriental scholars have been doing? Not trying to know more about the people who are teaching them. So examine your own beliefs and biases. Develop an oppositional framework to grasp cultural differences. Why would you develop an oppositional framework? What he has mentioned this word somewhere in the passage. Okay, let's just go back. That was the red herring. Okay, let's quickly look at the passage. First part, he talked about Oriental scholars and what was the problem with them. Second paragraph, he says Orientalism, particularly in its opposition to the more disciplined neoclassicism, which is not that they have to develop an oppositional framework to it, right? Therefore, what would be my answer? So that is not the right answer. Question 4. So therefore, you don't need this. This is the wrong answer. How do I go from this to pen, Ravi? Okay. I'll just have the pen, my highlighter pen, it's gone to, can it be done? So it's not my fault. We'll just go ahead. I'll just point to the one. All right, you understand from there. So now, there's no question of developing an oppositional framework. So examine your beliefs and biases, know something from the point of view of the culture. They would definitely recommend complex reality of a nation's society and reading the country's literature. All are implied in the first and second paragraph. Not B, therefore my answer is B. Clear? 3 out of 4 questions were easily doable here. I got 3 out of 4 questions right, which is why I'm saying this. And that mistake that I made was a very silly mistake, very silly mistake. But when you are in a hurry, you tend to do that. The second one was on the Chicago school tradition. Sociologists of the Chicago school tradition who talk about migration from rural to urban America, about integration, about the rise of crime, right? Therefore, it was an interesting passage. The thing about slot 3 was all the passages were easy to read, interesting, very diverse, but the questions were tricky. The answer options were very close. If you were in a hurry, you're likely to mark the wrong answer. Okay, so if you were a little careful in cross-checking the answers, most of the answers would have been right. But the time was not on our side, so when we rushed through, we made mistakes. A fundamental conclusion by the author is that the best circumstances for crime to flourish are when there are severe racial disparities. Did he talk about only crime flourishing? He talked about the situation in America, he talked about migration, then he talked about why there was no integration among them in that migrant societies. African Americans found it more difficult to be integrated, therefore crime rose. But he did not say only racial disparity. So one, if you really look at answer 1, it was too narrow. All right. B, to prevent crime, it's important to maintain social order through maintaining social segregation. What is segregation? Segregation is keeping people apart on whatever basis, normally racial or other basis. But he didn't say that. He didn't talk about how to prevent crime, number 1. He just talked about what were the situations that led to crime. And if he had even suggested how to prevent crime, he wouldn't have suggested social segregation. He would have, the tone of the author was to suggest that there should have been better integration, right? And again, so that is not correct. Rapid population growth and demographic diversity. Yes, he talks about rapid population growth. He talks about demographic diversity, rural to urban and immigrants and lack of integration. So that lack of integration, in other words, gave rise to social disorganization and that led to crime. Therefore, the best conclusion is option C. Alright, which one of the following sets of words or phrases best encapsulates the issues discussed in the passage? You're running out of time, you try to understand the flow of the passage from your memory, you are likely to get it wrong. But let's just quickly look at it. Chicago school, he mentions it first. Native-born whites, European immigrants, poverty. Looks quite good. But what's the problem with it? He's not talking about other immigrants. He's not talking about lack of social integration. Chicago school is there in the first paragraph, but the other ideas do not seem to cover everything. Durkheim, Marx, Shaw, these are only, and 2-3 of them were only in one study. So I would go and immediately eliminate B, because B is nowhere near the main point, the main flow of passages. Chicago school, yes. Social organization or rather disorganization. And social disorganization led to migration and so social organization was affected due to migration and other things and crime. To me, between A and C is broader, not native born whites. It talks about social organization which was disrupted due to various factors. So C would be my best option. Let's look at D. Rapid population growth, all right. Heavy industry, did he talk of heavy industry anywhere? Segregation, yes. Crime, yes. Therefore, the correct answer would be C. 7 is a quote from the passage. At the start of the 20th century, Americans were predominantly a rural population, but by the century's midpoint, most lived in urban areas. At the start of the century, 20th century, it was a rural-based society, but by the century's midpoint, mid-20th century, it had become an urban America. That's what he's saying. Which one of the following statements, if true, does not contradict this statement? That means three of them would contradict it. Which one wouldn't? Demographic transition in America in the 20th century is strongly marked by an out-migration from rural areas. In the 20th century, there was an out-migration, migration out from rural areas. Oh, that goes with what the author is saying. But we will look at the other options. A population census conducted in 1952 showed that more Americans lived in rural areas than in urban areas. We're talking of migration to urban areas. So if you have more people living in rural areas, that doesn't work, contradicts. Economists have found that throughout the 20th century, the size of the labor force in America has always been largest in rural areas. Contradicts my passage. I want an option which talks about urban, concentration in urban areas, and that A has already done it. B and C talk about concentration in rural areas, whether it is of labor force or population. The estimation of per capita income in America in the mid-20th century primarily required data from rural areas. Then again it is contradicting the urban focus, therefore the correct answer is A. Easy question. If you had been careful, most of you would have got it within a minute. Which of the following is not a valid inference from the passage? That means 3 are valid, 1 isn't. Which one is that? Will take you a little longer. The differences between urban and rural lifestyles were crucial factors in the disruption experienced by migrants to American cities. He did talk of how migration led to problems because of disruption of social organization, because the lifestyles were different. So integration became harder and some were not integrated at all. So A can be inferred. According to the social disorganization theory, fast-paced social change provides fertile ground for rapid growth of crime. Yes, he said that social change, those who cannot cope with it, there is poverty which is associated with social change. Some people become richer, some are left behind, some are integrated, some are not. Those who are not, either economically or socially, it becomes a breeding ground for crime. So B can also be inferred. The failure to integrate in migrants, especially he talked of African Americans in this context, along with social problems like poverty, was a significant reason for the rise of crime in American cities, has been mentioned in the passage. According to the social disorganization theory, the social integration of African migrants into Chicago was slower. It didn't happen at all, he said, because they were less organized. No, the social organization was disrupted. But he didn't say they were less organized. This part of it is out of scope of the passage. Therefore, my correct answer is D. All right. The next passage was interesting. It was about the nature, the integration of nature with the machine age. Logic or biologic along with machine intelligence, right? And he talked about extraction of logic out of biology and using it in machines. And the author somewhere says a very, very nice sentence, somewhere in the first paragraph, is it? Where he says, human beings are becoming more and more like machines and machines are becoming more and more like human beings, right? That was the key of the passage. Let's look at the questions. Part of this bionic convergence is a matter of words. Which of the following statements best expresses the point made by the author? Whenever there is such a specific quote, we just need to read the exact area where the question has been asked, and then we can answer the question. Yes, the very last paragraph. Part of this bionic convergence is the overlap of mechanical and lifelike increases year by year. Part of this bionic convergence is a matter of words. The meaning, how is it? The explanation comes after it. The meanings of mechanical and life are both stretching until all complicated things can be perceived as machines. So it's just words. What is mechanical? What is life? This meaning is being stretched until all complicated things can be perceived as machines and all self-sustaining machines can be perceived as alike. This is it. This is why he says it is words. Yet, beyond semantics, what is semantics? Words. Beyond the words that you are using, a trend is going on. What is that trend? Human things are becoming more, human-made things, manufactured things are becoming more lifelike, and life is becoming more mechanical or engineered. So what is the meaning of this? What is the point the author is trying to say? Bios and technos are both convergent forms of logic, but they generate meanings about the world that are mutually exclusive. Does he say that the meanings are not the same? He says this is just words. We are just using words to describe man and machine. But eventually, beyond semantics, there's a lot of what is human-made becomes lifelike, what is part of life is becoming engineered, right? So mutually exclusive, wrong, the use of that word. Mechanical and life are words from different logical systems and are fundamentally incompatible in meaning. Mutually exclusive makes A wrong, incompatible in meaning makes B wrong. Mechanical and life were earlier seen as opposite, but the difference between two is increasingly blurred. Now, there is not much difference. They are kind of, what do you call mechanical? What do you call life? Life is becoming more and more mechanical. What is mechanical is becoming lifelike. Therefore, my correct answer is C. All right. Which of the following sets of words or phrases best serves as keywords to the passage? Generally, you would have to go back and look at first paragraph. Okay, this like we did for the sociology Chicago school. But here, the options were very easy. Easy in the sense, you could easily eliminate 2 at least out of 4. Complex systems, okay, carrots, milk, cows, convergence, technos, logic. Seem to be talking only of one side. Now, these are examples. Carrot, milk, cows. So wherever you have words like that, those generally won't be. Those are examples. The main key words are not the examples. The key words is the concept that is being explained by those examples. So A would be eliminated automatically. Nature, bios, talk of the same thing. What is bios? Bios is nature, logic of nature. Technos, self-repair, and Holsteins comes at the end, a kind of cow. B is out. Nature, computers, carrot milk, milk cows, carrots, milk cows, genetic engineering, no. Complex systems, biologic, bioengineering, technos logic, convergence, yes. Complex systems, biologic being created, you're borrowing from biologic, there's bioengineering, there is technos logic, and then actually at the present moment, there is a fantastic convergence of the two. So D is my answer and didn't require too much time to arrive at the solution. None of the following statements is implied by the arguments except. That means only one is implied. Which one is that, right? The biological realm is as complex as the mechanical one, which is why the logic of bios is being imported into machines. Did he say that? What about life becoming engineered? Genetic engineers and bioengineers are the same insofar as they both seek to force evolution in an artificial way. Likely, let's look at it. He does talk of genetic engineers who are trying to play with genes to make them more mechanical, and then he talks about bioengineers try to do the rest. And the similarity is implied because they're both working on the same basis. So this is an inference we can make. But let's look at if there is a better option. Purposeful design represents the pinnacle of scientific expertise. I don't remember reading anything about pinnacle of scientific expertise. Historically, now this is the catch. Is it B or is it D? Historically, philosophers have known that laws of nature can be abstracted and applied elsewhere. I had marked this question for review because I thought D also looks possible. I read somewhere about philosophers and laws of nature. Now, when you go back to the passage, somewhere here, what did he say? The logic of machine, non-technical logic, somewhere here he says, he talks about philosophers. Second paragraph, although many philosophers in the past suspected that one could abstract the laws of life and apply them elsewhere. Did they actually do it? They thought it was possible. We think it is possible to live on the Mars, but we haven't actually done it. Now, if you didn't confirm this, you'd have gone and marked D. All right. Therefore, answer is the one on, where were we? Question 11. This is not correct. They suspected that they could be abstracted. They have known, they were not sure. All right, so answer is B. Okay. Took me time, spent a lot of time, went back, had marked this question for review, and then managed to cross-check and get it right. All right. The author claims that the apparent veil between organic and the manufacture has crumbled to reveal the apparent difference, the apparent wall which is separating, thin line that is separating has crumpled, so that is not there anymore, to reveal that the two are and have always been of one being. They're not really separate, they're more or less the same. Right? Which one expresses the point made by the author here? Since the statement is so clear and easy, look out for a catch in the options. Organic reality has crumpled under the veil of manufacturing, rendering the apparent and the real as the same thing. Is it only about organic reality that we are talking about? Both, right? He says the veil has crumpled. Due to what? Efforts on both sides to show that they are both more or less the same. Doesn't mean one has made sure that the other has become part of it. So A is not the answer. Apparent reality and organic reality are distinguished by the fact that the former is manufactured. What is apparent reality? He talks about manufactured reality and what is part of life systems and machines. So apparent and organic reality he's not talking about. He's talking about manufactured reality and organic reality. So B is wrong because of the use of that. The crumpling of the veil between apparent and manufactured reality reveals them to have the same being. What is the mistake? What is the scientific advances have made it difficult to distinguish between, the word here is not apparent, manufactured and organic, biological and engineered. That is what he's talking about. So the correct answer is D. If you didn't read the word apparent reality properly, you're in trouble. Right? Okay. The next one is about software and its limitations. All right? Okay, let's look at it. He gives examples of problems with software, and then that's the passage. In the Ebola misdiagnosis case, we can infer that the doctors probably missed the forest for the trees because, let's go back because I have not summarized this for you. Let's look at the Ebola example. First paragraph, people are likely to sharpen their know-how. 10 years ago, information scientists found that people who were using more advanced software were aimlessly clicking around, while those with the less advanced software were working better. Our skills get sharper only through practice, and just automation doesn't help. Then the Ebola misdiagnosis comes in the second paragraph in the slide, where he says that In a recent paper published in the journal Diagnosis, 3 medical researchers examined the misdiagnosis of Thomas Erin Duncan, the first person to die of Ebola in the US at Texas Health Presbyterian Hospital, Dallas. They argued, so why did he die? They argued that the digital templates used by the hospital's clinicians to record patient information probably helped to induce a kind of tunnel vision. They used templates, digital templates, to find out about the patient's history, and that led to a tunnel vision that refused to let them think of as many possibilities as possible. These highly constrained tools are optimized for data capture, but at the expense of sacrificing their utility for appropriate triage and diagnosis. They are there for data capture, but they don't really help in diagnosis because the users can miss the forest for the trees. They can ignore certain very important details. That's what he says. So why did it happen? Because they used digital templates which probably didn't give them some important aspects of information. All right. So they were led by data processed by digital templates. True. A is likely to be my correct answer. They were misled by they used the digital templates, and that led to a tunnel vision, and that must have led them to misdiagnosing. So they used the digital templates, and that is why the errors happen. That's what the researchers found. A looks like a perfect answer. So we'll keep that aside before we're looking at B, C, and D. The data collected was not sufficient. Okay. Did he say anything about insufficient data? He says the data that is collected is not appropriate for diagnosis because it leads to a kind of narrow tunnel vision. The digital templates forced them to acquire tunnel vision. No, it didn't force them. Digital template probably resulted in a tunnel vision. You become very narrow-minded. You're only led by those facts. That's what it means. They used the wrong type of digital template. We can't say. It says it had data which led the scientists to think only in one way, or the doctors to only think in one way. So they were led by the digital template processed data. That is option A, which is the correct answer. Easy question, you can get it because the answer was right there in the passage. In the context of the passage, all of the following can be considered examples of human-centered automation. Automation which is more in. Why is option C wrong, Aniket? Option C of question 13. Where is the forcing? Option C said the digital templates forced them acquire a tunnel vision. Let's go back to the passage. Look at the answer. They argued that the digital templates induced a kind of tunnel vision. Probably helped induce tunnel vision. What is the meaning? We are only drawing our conclusion. They used the templates. They only had a particular kind of data and they were led to diagnose a particular way. So because of the digital tunnel, they probably became narrow-minded, narrow in their diagnosis. That is tunnel vision, when you are focused only on one aspect and refuse to look at other aspects. Got it? So force them. Probably helped to induce a kind of tunnel vision is not the same as forced to. Right? That's a difference. It's only likely that they developed a tunnel vision. But what is the main reason? They used that. And that was probably the cause of the misdiagnosis. Got it, Aniket? Why it is? It probably, tunnel vision is similar to, but why did they miss the forest for the trees? They are not asking what is the similarity in the analogy. They are asking why did the doctors end up missing the forest for trees? Why? The main cause of not looking is not the tunnel vision. The main cause is the digital templates that they used. The digital templates they used probably made them unaware or not neglect other considerations, and therefore it probably led them the wrong way. It probably led to a tunnel vision leading the long way. So the key is the digital templates, not the tunnel vision. The tunnel vision is the side thing. The templates probably made them only look at this and not consider other options. You understand? So the cause here is the templates, not the tunnel vision. And forced them to have a tunnel vision is not correct. You understood? There are two words here. Digital templates forced them to acquire tunnel vision is not correct. They used digital templates, which probably made them have a narrower outlook on the and affected their diagnosis. That's the reason. So it was a tricky question, but if you really looked at it, I eliminated it with the very word forced, because I remember I went back to the passage and read it, probably because it induced a tunnel vision. So the forced part of it is too extreme for me. All right. Okay. In the context of the passage, all of the following can be considered examples of human-centered automation. Easy question if you read through all the options carefully. Software offers interpretation when requested by the human operator. So human operation is required for the software to work or offer its interpretation. Second, instructed by the resident, the temperature changes, human-centric. Medical software provides optional feedback on the doctor's analysis. Only if you want it, you say, yeah, I want feedback. Then many students marked C here. And I said, it's an optional feedback. So you have a software, you want a doctor's feedback directly, or you want the medical software feedback. You have the option. So you are the one who's deciding which one you want to take. So that is also human run. But D, software that auto-completes text when the user writes an email, where is that? It is just triggered probably by our first few words, but it's not human-centric. So best wishes can become beast wishes. In the small autocomplete itself, we have so many problems. So the easy answer is obviously D. There's no human element. There is, but it's out of our control when the correction is happening, right? So answer is D. Okay. From the passage, we can infer that the author is apprehensive about the use of sophisticated automation for all of the following reasons, all of which have been mentioned in the passage. Stunts the development of the user, mentioned it where he talked about people who are using advanced software, just clicking away, hoping that the advanced software would help them. Stops users from exercising their brains, same aspect, same example. Could mislead people, the case of the medical diagnosis. All right, but he has nowhere said computers could replace human beings. Therefore, the answer is B. That's an extreme concern, right? That he has not gone into that area at all. All right, next one. It can be inferred that in the university experiment, one group of people were aimlessly clicking around because. Why were they aimlessly clicking? They did not have the skill set to address complicated tasks. They were using an advanced software, right? Did they say that they did not have the skill set? He said those who used the advanced software were just clicking around while those who didn't use. But it doesn't mean, it says nothing about the skill set. Didn't have the skill set is out of scope of what he has said. That's a conjecture. They wanted to avoid making mistakes. Why would they keep clicking around if they wanted to avoid making mistakes? We can't. Again, infer. The other group was carrying out the tasks more efficiently. Oh, they are doing it, let me click more. Maybe, but you can't say for sure. They were hoping that the software would help them carry out tasks. That's why they were clicking. Somewhere the software has to have an answer. The dependence of the software was so high because the expectation was it's an advanced software, it's going to give me the answer. So they were clicking and trying to see kuch to hoga. Right? So the answer is D. Okay, A and D again were the common problems. Many students said that they didn't have it, which is why they were using the advanced software. That's a guesswork on your part. How can you say they didn't have the skill set? They are using something advanced. If I'm using a more advanced gadget, I would expect the gadget to do it. Why would I use so I would expect that would have the answers. That's my expectation. So that's the inference, that they were hoping that they could get answers from it. So they were not relying on their skill sets, even if they had it. They probably had it, but they wouldn't have liked to, or didn't even think of answering, because that is there to do our work for us. It's like calculations, right? In our parents' generation, they could calculate anything, any number from any number. They were not sitting for cat. Otherwise, I know you guys can calculate. But for us now, even simple math, we just use the calculator on the phone. So slowly the capacity or even the inclination to calculate is not there, to think this number plus this number, why, when the phone will do it for me, right? So that is the reason. All right, now how did you find the parajumbles? What was the accuracy rate of parajumbles as predicted by us? Because we're running out of time, I made the cardinal mistake that I told students not to. Yes, RCs were time consuming, but if you took the time to answer RCs with due respect to the RCs and gave the time, Aniket, you must have got a lot of questions right. One out of 3 is fine, because there was no minus marking in the parajumbles. And what the advice I gave all my students, I never follow it, right? I'm always tempted to mark all the questions, all 24. And generally I'm pretty lucky. This time my VA went for a toss, especially the summaries. Summaries looked easy, just kept answering. RCs were done, there were just 4-5 minutes left for all the VA questions, out of which the 2 para filling was okay. But yeah, so remember, if you don't know an answer, don't have the time for it, if there is minus marking, don't mark it. I am not going to from the next time. Otherwise, I would have got a good score. The number of negatives in the VA section, the number of mistakes in the VA section pulled me down from what I was expecting. All right, and a couple of silly mistakes in RC, very silly mistakes. I felt like kicking myself. I said, this is what a student would do. Why would I mean, I never judge a student, never do that. I mean, that exam, the tension of the exam, the heat in the room, my examination center, the room where I was sitting was so hot. The student sitting next to me was coughing continuously. I am still COVID phobic, totally. So I wore 3 sets of masks, not 1. I don't want to fall ill, and had lots of problems. All right, guys, let's start. Did you get this right? I'm not going to go through it. What are the catch areas here? Various industrial sectors, including retail, transit system, enterprises, event organizers, have now started leveraging these beacons. Have now started. No, Karthik, none. No objections. You can only raise an objection when an answer is blatantly wrong. And in VARC, there hardly ever an answer that you can call blatantly wrong, right? See, if it is grammar or fill in the blanks even, you can raise objections. RC is so subjective. Like in this one, many students didn't read this. Now, right? And anyway, it's theta. A beacon fixed to a shop wall enables the retailers, including retail, enables the retailers. What does that give you? 1-2 link. You got 1-2 link, then the rest becomes easy. Smartphones or other devices can capture beacon signals. So the answer obviously will be 4-3-1-2. Beacons are tiny, inexpensive, micro level base. Smartphones are this, and then 1 and 2. Clear? This was an easy one, doable. I hope you got it right. 18, fill in the blanks with the right one. The dual inheritance theory. So the sentence that they gave us is, when people socially learn from each other, they often learn without understanding what they are copying. Okay. The dual inheritance theory says inheritance is itself an evolutionary system. It has variation. What makes us a new kind of animal is we rely heavily on social learning to the point where socially acquired information is effectively a second line of inheritance, the first being our genes. All right. Then put the sentence. When people socially learn from each other, because we are saying we rely heavily on social learning. When we learn socially, we do not really think of why we are copying, what we are copying. Then what do? We just tend to home in on those who seem to be the smartest or successful people. Why are we copying him? We don't know. But we just copy the smartest or the most successful person. So this sentence will go in 2. Alright. Same way here. Many students had a doubt between 2 and 3. Right. Bringing workers back to their desks has been a rocky road for employers and employees alike. The evolution of the pandemic has meant that the best laid plans have not materialized. What are the best laid plans? They wanted people to come back. It looked time consuming, Aniket, but that's what I said. Time was our enemy, but this was obviously took longer than odd one out parajumbles. But if you had spent a little time, would have been easy. That was my undoing. Because I did these, I got these right, and summary was where I lost out. But at least these are right. So, yeah. So the flow of workers back into office has been more than a trickle. Then comes, this has meant a lot of uncertainty. People are not coming back, even if you have asked them to come back. And so we are not sure when we are going to have a wide-scale return to office. All right. How was this summary? Did you get it right? Aniket, Karthik, Manas. It doesn't seem to me that the job of comedy is to offend or have the potential to offend, or it cannot be drained of that potential. Rowan Atkinson said of cancel culture. One student said, I didn't read cancel culture anywhere. Well, it's given here. Rowan Atkinson said of cancel culture. The job of comedy, it does seem to me that the job of comedy seems to offend or to have the potential to offend, and it cannot be drained of that potential. Comedy will offend, has the potential to offend. We cannot change this, said Rowan Atkinson of cancel culture. Every joke has a victim. That's the definition of a joke. Someone, something, or an idea is made to look ridiculous. Okay, you have to be very careful in saying what you're allowed to make jokes about. Then he says, is that really possible? Right? So the correct summary will be, all jokes target someone. Okay, but he says you should be allowed to make jokes about absolutely anything. That is the feature of a free society. So all jokes target anyone, but we are living in a free society, so we should have the right to joke about anybody. But this is against cancel culture, which says that you shouldn't offend. Okay. So many students said we didn't think of A because cancel culture has not been mentioned. It has been mentioned. The entire paragraph is a reaction to cancel culture with regard to jokes and their potential to offend. All right. 21, there were 2 H's. Let's look at it. Tasmin Blanchard, curator of Fashion Open Studio, an initiative by a campaign group showcasing the work of ethical designers, says, we're all drawn to an exquisite piece of embroidery, a colorful textile, or even a style of design that might have originated from another heritage. We're attracted to designs or fabric that has been made by another culture. But this magpie mentality, where all of culture and history is up for grabs as inspiration, but we have developed a kind of magpie mentality. What does a magpie do? Picks up anything it can see to make its nest. So this magpie mentality, where all of culture and history is up for grabs as inspiration, has accelerated since the proliferation of social media. Now, one option said copying an embroidery design or pattern of textiles from native communities who own them is tantamount to stealing. They need to be compensated. Here he just says when once a fashion student would research and history and traditions of a particular item of clothing, we now have a world where we steal images, okay, from image libraries without a care for their significance. Not just that, we can steal a motif, a craft technique, transfer it to a piece of clothing that's either mass produced or appears on a runway without credit or compensation to their original communities. We lift everything without caring about the culture, the community, or compensation. Here he just doesn't talk about anything else. He talks only about compensation. So A is not a complete summary. Cultural collaboration is the need for the hour. The author has not talked about cultural collaboration. He just says, earlier you would research and find out, now you're just stealing from them without bothering about their culture, without giving them compensation. So it's not talking about collaboration, so B is out. Media has encouraged mass production. Images are copied effortlessly without care or concern for the interests of ethnic communities. Looks okay, which most students seem to have marked based on your feedback to me. Taking fashion ideas from any cultural group without their consent is a form of appropriation without giving due credit, compensation, and respect. He said media has accelerated this trend, but the trend is always there. That is number one. Second is, we are doing a disservice to the culture by, one, not understanding it, not giving credit, not giving compensation. So the respect, compensation, credit, the best summary which takes in all the main points is D. C talks about media. Many got slightly diverted by that, as was the intention. All right, next one. This was an easy one. Many of you got it right. I remember one student asking in our group, 3214 किसी का आया क्या? So this is the 3214 case. Meritocracy as an organizing principle is an inevitable function of a free society. Is an inevitable function of a free society. 3. But the raft of recent books on the limits of merit, meritocracy is a function of the free society, but the books on the limits of meritocracy, merit is an important correction of the arrogance of contemporary entitlement, right? Then the next one would see, the more we are able to achieve that our achievements are largely out of our control, the faster. So the book will talk about the limits of merit. The more you accept that your merit generally or your achievements are largely out of your control, you will not be that arrogant. In turn, you will become more humble. So 3214, perfect, easy if you had spent the time on it. All right, this I got it wrong. I still think that logic would work both ways in this question. If I wanted to sit indoors and read or play Sonic the Hedgehog on a red-hot Sega Mega Drive, I would often be made to feel guilty about not going outside to enjoy it while it's lasts. So obviously somebody wants to sit inside and somebody is made to feel guilty, go out and play. My mom, quite reasonably, wanted me and my sister out of the house in the sun. Could be a good starting sentence. 2. Tales of my mom's idyllic sounding childhood in the Sussex countryside, where trees were climbed by 8 a.m. and streams navigated by lunchtime, were passed down to us like folklore. Okay, now I thought that 3 would start that, you know, my mom always used to tell us tales about her childhood, so reasonably she wanted me to go and play out. But she didn't say naturally, reasonably. Cat said that this is the right question. I said it's 3214. Cat said no, 2 comes at the beginning. In 30 seconds you had to make the decision, right? So tales of, I thought that start by talking about her idyllic childhood. Yeah, 3214 is the answer I marked. Sadly, that was wrong. All right, so now you know why we were wrong. But logically, why not? Okay, reasonably. Therefore, my mom asked me if he had said reasonably, like any parent, my mom wanted me to go out. We always heard mom stories. 1 and 4 were easy. All right. Okay, here again, here there's a big catch here. in the way the answers, fantastic question. I'm going to use this in my next summary class. Okay, one of the best questions I've seen on summary, enough to drive anyone nuts, but if you spend 2 minutes, you can admire the intelligence of the question setter. To defend the sequence of alphabetization may seem bizarre, so obvious. It does, Aniket, but it could have followed from an earlier, two could have followed from the sentence must have started from the middle of a paragraph, in which case two takes off, that mom is an outdoor person and parents nowadays want people to sit outside. Children don't spend time outside. Mom reasonably wants us to sit outside while I would like to sit inside or something. Yeah, that's what I said. In this question, 3-2 makes as much sense as 2-3. We would fight for 3-2 because we've written it, but you can't argue with para-jumbles, right? It's the logic of the author. As long as it's 2-3 also works. If 2-3 were bizarre, we can always point out. We've had bizarre answers also. 3-2, 2-3, to me, 3-2 look better than 2-3, which is why I made the mistake. Looking back, you say, 3-2 bhi chalega, 2-3 bhi chalega. So the examiner said 2-3 it is and robbed me of 3 marks, robbed you of 3 marks. Kya kare? There is no logic to narratives, right? Is it illogical to put 2 at the beginning? No. Nobody will accept your objection, Aniket. It's just a waste of time. I pick up a passage from anywhere and give it to you, right? So the author says, and it's in the middle of a narrative, obviously. My mum reasonably asked. He didn't say, therefore mum asked. Then you could connect it to the earlier sentence. Mum reasonably wanted me to play outside like any child. We've grown up listening to her childhood spending outside, and then 1 and 4, right? All right. Now, this summary was again tricky. First part, it says sequence of alphabetization is bizarre. So obvious is its application that you can't imagine not using the alphabetical order. Then he says, in the Middle Ages, though, difference for ecclesiastical tradition left scholars reluctant to categorize things according to alphabet. To do so would be a rejection of the divine order. But this didn't happen. Alright, so in the Middle Ages, alphabetical order was not used. The rediscovery of ancient and Greek and Roman classics necessitated more effective ways of ordering, searching and referencing. Government bureaucracy also wanted it. Therefore, alphabetical order started being used. Option A said alphabetical order took several centuries to gain common currency because of religious beliefs. Yes, first part. Lack of appreciation of its efficacy in the ordering of things. Both reasons have been given. Good summary. Let's look at the other one, which most of you seem to have marked. Unlike the alphabet, once the efficacy of the alphabetic sequence became apparent to scholars and administrators, its use became widespread. I didn't change the slide. Oh, it's not showing. Why is 24 not showing? Can you see it now? Can you see the slide now? 24? Yeah. So the key here is this. Unlike the alphabet, where has he told how the alphabet was accepted? So how can you first even use that unlike the alphabet, alphabetic order, the efficacy of alphabetic sequence became apparent only much later. So that comparison itself should have flagged you off that this may not be the right one, because he just said we think alphabetical order as something which is natural, but it was not always so. So the passage is all about alphabetical order, right? And C and D. So the correct answer is obviously A. So this is where students had a problem. Many of them said they'd marked B for this, so it's A. All right, but I think the paper turned out to be a little more difficult once the answer keys were out. Because when I came out of the exam hall, I thought this was one of my best attempts ever, except for the summaries. Then also I was quite confident that my summary answers were correct. And yeah, been very, very humbled by the entire experience. So a lot of learnings that we take from here. All the best. Once the final percentiles are out, let's get together, start preparing for the next phase. I know Gautam, Srinivas are all there helping you with your next round, choosing colleges, applying, looking at your chances, and all that. And we should also be focusing on XAT, IFT, SNAP, all the upcoming exams. All right. You know that we have all these programs. Now you should be looking at GDPI and VAT, where we will have some recorded sessions and live sessions from the best in the industry. Gautam and Srinivas will be guiding you through your preparations for GDPI and WAT. All right. I will see you very soon. We have the last lap to SNAP and IFT series on. Those of you who are serious about it, please attend those sessions at 7 p.m. from 30th November to 9th December. That means some sessions are already gone, so that you increase your chances of doing well in those exams. All right, MyCat exam analysis with Srinivas immediately after the exam. Poor chap, he takes all the exams. Okay, he's not done with the exams. I'm allowed to select, but he takes all of them. Make sure you do press a like. Yeah, subscribe to our channels, follow us, like us on all our social media channels. And I will see you all very soon. All the best. Take care. Bye-bye.